but the force that also recognizes the need and the possibility to wrench a revolutionary future out of the extreme crisis we're in throughout society. And that force of the Revcoms, the National Revolution Tour, and the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show, which cannot exist without your financial support, which is why we're here today. We're kicking off a $15,000 emergency fund drive. This is just the basics of what's needed for this Revolution Tour and this RNL Revolution Nothing Less show. The tour has brought together volunteers from across the country to Los Angeles to concentrate people putting themselves to the mission of organizing forces now for a real revolution. We're anchoring a national movement of revolution clubs across the country, and we're working full-time to break through for real societal impact for revolution in a rare moment when a real revolution is possible. And we'll talk more about that today. We are rooted and anchoring and applying this declaration and call to get organized now for a real revolution, which you can watch at revcom.us. Which you can read at revcom.us. Print copies, spread this around. We'll talk more about this and the significance of this here today. And we're also basing ourselves on and fighting to make known the work and the leadership of Bob Avakian, really the most important political thinker and leader in the world today, somebody you need to know about. We follow Bob Avakian, say if you want to get free, if you want humanity to get free, you need to follow BA too. He's brought forward a new communism and a strategic approach to making an actual revolution. And he's made the point and the challenge that we have two choices. We either live with this system and condemn future generations to the same or worse if they have a future at all, or we make revolution. And that last point is what we're fighting to make good on for real. But none of this is possible without your financial support. For the volunteers to eat, to be housed, for transportation, for materials to distribute, and we're going to show you a lot of materials today, to impact society with stickers, with banners, with pamphlets, and more. For the production costs, for the studio, the lights of the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show, which we're being filmed by and lit up and heard through today. But we have to, much more is needed to really impact society and to deal with the situation where far too few people know about this revolution and are with it. So we want to encourage you to share this live stream. We're going to just be together for a little over an hour here today. We're going to talk more about our program in a minute. But share this, post it on social media, let people know that this is happening, that this is live, and that they're going to be hearing about what is being understood and being done in a truly pivotal and historic moment where look, the future rests on what we understand and how we act. So that's on all of us. For you watching, we want to thank you for tuning in. And for those who've already contributed, we'll see, you'll hear more from each other in just a minute.
Yeah, I want to encourage people, text your friends right now, send them the link, post it on social media, tell people to tune in now, right? The focus of today's live stream is how we, the Revcoms, are seeing the stakes of this situation and how we're working tirelessly to change the whole course of history, beating back this fascist assault and urgently, and organizing forces to make a real revolution. So later on this live stream, we're going to be bringing on Sarah Taylor, one of the co-hosts of the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show, to talk about the Revolution Nothing Less show, what they've been doing, and not just sounding the alarm about this Texas abortion ban sooner than most, but providing crystal clear analysis about what this is part of and what is actually needed. You're going to be hearing from Bob Avakian, the leader of the revolution, briefly going deeper into the problem we face, why we say capitalism and patriarchy. You can't end one without ending the other. Revolution, nothing less. And you'll hear about the work of the National Revolution Tour, who we've issued a call working with the revolution clubs across the country for Break All the Chains contingents, Unleash the Fury of Women as a Mighty Force for Revolution at the October 2nd Women's Marches for Abortion Rights, called for by the Women's March. And we're marching under these slogans: no going back, no surrender, abortion on demand and without apology, forced motherhood is female enslavement, Christian fascist theocrats Get your laws and vigilantes off our bodies. And patriarchy and capitalism. You can't end one without ending the other. Revolution, nothing less. And later in this live stream, I will be talking more about the stakes and the real impact that this can have in a turning point in history. I'll be talking about what we're changing and how you can support this. And the fundraising information is on the screen. So begin giving money now. Send us the link and the Venmo and the CashApp and all of the information that you see on the screen. Send it out to everybody right now.
We have already, so here's the deal. This live stream today is a kickoff to raise $15,000 in an emergency way, basically between now and October 2nd, and maybe a little bit beyond that. But these funds are needed for this National Revolution Tour to function, to operate, and to have a big impact, in addition to the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show, in particular in relationship to and at this pivotal moment around this abortion ban. We're going to be talking more about what we're doing, what Michelle just said about these national contingents. We're organizing one in LA, New York, Chicago, the Bay Area. I think there's going to be one of these contingents in Texas. This call, though, is coming from the National Revolution Tour, and Michelle will talk more about what we're learning here on the ground in Los Angeles, and why it can make such a big difference right now. So toward this $15,000, they're going to put up in a second how much we've raised toward that $15,000. And then there we go. So we've raised $5,374 from donations ranging from $100, $50, $1,000. And we want to thank everybody who's given so far. Your donation really matters, and you're making a sacrifice for the whole future of humanity. So I want to open with a $1,000 matching challenge that came from a mental health professional and a supporter of the revolution. And you'll hear from her, she's giving $1,000 and saying, I will match whatever comes into the National Revolution Tour up to that amount. And we want to see if we can make this match in the next short period of time on this live stream. So she says, I know that there are many of you in this country who are outraged by the new, rabid, draconian Texas law criminalizing abortion after 6 weeks of pregnancy and deputizing a brutal lynch mob to hunt down women who have a bounty now put on their heads. And she's referring to the fact that this law basically says you can get a $10,000 reward for suing somebody who aids and abets a woman who's been able to be proven to have had an abortion. And so if you aid that woman, you can get $10,000 for suing and taking somebody to court. So this basically does what she says, deputizes a brutal lynch mob to hunt down women who have a bounty now put on their heads. This is an emergency. You and anyone who has an ounce of consciousness about where the world is headed must support the only way to break these chains of oppression, which is revolution, nothing less. Donate to the Get Organized for an Actual Revolution Tour, and I will match your contribution up to $1,000. You've seen the courage that the Revcoms bring out in the streets, exposing the truth about the suffering that this system of capitalism imperialism brings down on people here and around the world, straight up, with passion, with certitude and conviction. Strategic commanders of this revolution and followers of the deeply humanitarian and far-sighted architect of the new synthesis of communism, Bob Avakian. You have the heart to stand with them, to support building a break all the chains contingent, unleash the fury of women as a mighty force for revolution in the Women's March on October 2nd, a contingent that is bold, that is defiant, that is calling out this system and the leading edge of fascism that this Texas law represents. You know that this is not at all about any right to life, but that this is about slamming women back to being breeders and handmaids to men. You hate the white supremacy, the patriarchy, the misogyny that all of this represents. You who feel sick as you watch the planet burn and flood. You are outraged as you see the continued attacks on LGBTQ people, and horrified as you bear witness to desperate Haitian refugees getting whipped by border control henchmen, reminiscent of overseers and slave catchers. Imagine the impact that the Revcoms can have in bringing the pole of revolution and of the new communism into the larger arena of a national debate at this rare time when revolution is possible. Imagine captivating the imagination of people yearning for a better world, that they can step into this revolution on the spot and become organizers as well. Imagine the power of people breaking out of the killing confines of what this system says is possible and daring to fight for something much better for all of humanity. She goes on and she says, follow your heart, listen to your conscience, dare to reach for the highest aspiration of humanity. Donate now to the Get Organized for an Actual Revolution tour to help meet this $1,000 challenge. So thank you for that statement. Thank you for your contribution. And we do want to ask everybody watching, let's see if we can raise this. We can meet that beautifully heartfelt $1,000 challenge.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for that. It really does paint a picture of the kind of impact that is actually very much possible to have in this moment, and I wanted to read another statement that we received as soon as this emergency fundraiser was announced. They contributed $100, and they say, it is a privilege to donate to the emergency fund drive. The fascists have unleashed a brutal assault on women, which is an assault on humanity. I just donated $100 to help and build for the Break the Chains contingent at the October 2nd marches. This can be a part of the beginning of one aspect of building the movement for revolution on the basis of the new synthesis of communism brought forth by BA on a scientific basis. Although I was too young to have had direct experience with illegal abortions, I do remember something that I've never forgotten. A number of years ago, I had the opportunity to go through advanced training as a physician assistant. And one of the physicians who taught us was an abortion provider. This doctor had direct experience as a resident in the days before Roe, before abortion was legal, when they saw and had to take care of women who were dying from back alley abortions. This doctor showed us some x-rays of a patient who had a back alley abortion and ended up dying from it. That imagery was horrific enough to further cement my determination to never let those pre-Roe days return. And yet, we're not that far off from them. If we don't make a breakthrough and build a determined, mighty movement of women, men, and all of humanity who want to see a better world. This is why I'm donating to the Revolution Tour now, and I wish that I had more money to donate at this time. Thank you so much for that statement. And, people are going to hear more about this, but just in building for these contingents and working, to organize people around these contingents, we've heard a number of stories like this, and there needs to be a lot more of this as part of how we're actually unleashing that fury of women as a mighty force for revolution, to be in the streets now and not accept this, this horrible thing that people had to live through, happen again.
Yeah. Including that our generation doesn't know these stories. And this is something we're going to talk more about this in just a couple minutes about how this people talking about their experience actually is a part of the determined and defiant movement that needs to be built now. So again, people should make a contribution to the National Revolution Tour. I'm going to ask Michelle a few questions. We're going to talk about what has the work of the tour been, what impact can these contingents have, but just keep in mind that everything you're hearing, the impact that you're going to hear about, the influence that we've begun to have, the struggle we're waging with people, none of this is possible if the people on this National Revolution Tour aren't supported. If we aren't able to put gas in our cars to drive to campuses from Long Beach to East LA to the West Side to, all over a very large city. If we don't have materials to distribute, I'm wearing one of the brand new t-shirts that are going to be worn in these contingents next Saturday that says "Forced Motherhood is Female Enslavement." And the back of this shirt says what is actually a very polemical slogan: "No going back, no surrender, abortion on demand and without apology." And we're not going to surrender. And you're going to hear more about this next Saturday. This message has to be felt. But these shirts take money to print. If you can just imagine what it could look like to have a force of dozens and dozens and dozens, hundreds all across the country representing as a force to break all the chains, unleash the fury of women as a mighty force for revolution, that's very inspiring. It needs your support. So we've raised $5,434. That's bringing us closer to meet that $1,000 match. People keep giving, call your friends, people you know. And this today here is going to kick off what has to be a really determined week to raise this $15,000. And then you're going to be seeing more of us soon, because we have to go from here. We have to raise tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars, both for this tour to be supported, for this RNL Revolution Nothing Less show to be supported, but even more than that, to have a major impact throughout society, really at a moment where history could turn. So I want to come back to you, Michelle, and ask you some questions about, first, starting us off, what is the plan and vision for these contingents next Saturday on October 2nd? Break all the chains, unleash the fury of women as a mighty force for revolution. And why should people contribute towards these being made real?
Yeah, I mean, as people know, like even what's happening in Texas, right? The fact that abortion is effectively like taken away, from women, and this ban that actually stops women from getting an abortion after 6 weeks. Anybody who knows anything about how pregnancy works, women can't even know that they're pregnant at that point, and this means like being forced to become a mother against their will. We've heard stories and stories about, online and, on the RNL show that Sansara has talked about, of women that, are going through this as we speak in Texas, where their whole lives are basically foreclosed because of a pregnancy that wasn't even planned. And when they want to go and seek out an abortion, it's effectively like taken away, right? And not just that, but unleashing these fascist mobs, to basically sue anybody for $10,000 if they suspect that a woman is, even thinking about getting an abortion, and anybody who aids that woman in getting that abortion. This is like, a stop everything moment. Everybody needs to be outraged, and that's where the slogans come in. No going back, no surrender, abortion on demand and without apology. We're not going to take this, and nobody should want to take this, whether you're a woman that that has the body parts and the potential to to become pregnant or not. Anybody who who cares about the half of humanity that's female should be outraged and should be in the streets on October 2nd, which is when the Women's March has called for these marches across the country, right? And we, the Revcoms, have called for contingents, these break all the chains contingents, unleash the fury of women as a mighty force for revolution, because we understand where this is coming from. No, it's not going to take, just putting some women in office and changing some laws here or there. Is going to take a struggle. It's going to take people in the streets now not accepting this abortion ban to go down. And it's not just in Texas, actually, but these people are, these fascists are tweeting about red states, let's do, let's copy these kinds of laws and put them in effect all over the country. So this is an urgent moment. This has everything to do with whether or not women are going to be, full human beings, and people need to act. And so within that, we've issued this call for people to be in the streets and to join these break the chains contingents, right? And we've been going everywhere with this. We have these stickers and these posters, right? With all of our slogans, right, that actually call for the October 2nd break the chains contingent, and has our slogans and where people should actually meet, right? And then we have these stickers that have one of our slogans, right? And these are materials that we've printed to have on the day of, but also to organize people now, around when you meet us. It's not just, oh, thanks for the good information and go about my day, but let's actually go to work on changing all of this now, on putting this in front of people right now, people that are agonizing. And we've been out enough to talk to enough people to see that there is outrage out there, but that outrage needs to be channeled to being in the streets, determined resistance on this day and going forward.
And people should know too, I'm wearing this shirt. Maybe we can put up on the screen the materials that are being made for the contingents themselves. T-shirts, posters, banners, and these are being made and produced. They were designed by people on the National Revolution Tour, and they're being produced all across the country. Just to print the materials for the day itself here in Los Angeles, let alone across the country, has ticked $7,000. Now, some of that can be raised through getting these in people's hands. But Michelle, maybe you can talk some about what do you think is the impact of a revolutionary contingent in this kind of way in this moment?
Yeah. I mean, again, this understanding that frankly nobody has, right? And nobody's talking about the question of, the oppression of women in this kind of way, putting forward revolution, nothing less. As I said earlier, we're not just talking about changing some law or as the declaration and call puts forward, right? Not just trying to make some changes within the system that don't actually benefit all of humanity, but just a handful of people. We're not talking about any of that. And we're talking about a real revolution. And part of how we're going to be marching on this day is not to plead some people in power to make some changes, but to actually call on all of those people who care. When they see a contingent of, diverse people from different backgrounds and actually really bold and lively and fierce in the face of what to a lot of people looks like a very scary situation. And it is, but there's also the potential for this to be broken open in a bigger way that has everything to do with breaking all the chains. That's not just an empty slogan. We're talking about really putting an end to this through an actual revolution. And both the understanding that we have, the leadership, somebody who has done, a lot of work on this question. Nobody is talking about, the oppression of women in this kind of way, going way back to like how these divisions actually emerged. There's work that's done and there's a way to understand this, and most inspiring and most importantly, there's a way out of this. And people need to see this. People need to, feel it when they see those people marching in the street, not just women, but all people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's right. And I think the combination of modeling that kind of determined resistance, not symbolic, not go out for an afternoon and blah, 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 and then go home and go back to sleep. But this actually does have to be the turning point of determined, in your face, uncompromising resistance. That's the no going back, no surrender. Revcom.us has a very important couple of polemics from Tony Redtree that takes on the line from the New York Times that just says, oh, whatever, go through the motions, 40 years, we'll do the same slog strategy that the fascists have. No, because that will be costing the lives of women. And no, because the fascists are on the march and the very institutions you're holding on to are being ripped to shreds, which is exactly why it's a rare time when a revolution could be possible. So the force we're bringing out on Saturday is actually very linked to that determined stand, but also projecting and forging a force for and organizing a force for real revolution, which again is the mission of this tour. We've raised $5,534. This is getting us closer to our $1,000 challenge. Let's see if we can get that met by the time we've got a few more questions for Michelle. By the time we're done asking Michelle some questions, let's see if we can have that $1,000 challenge met. So Michelle, maybe you could talk some about, well, what is the experience of the National Revolution Tour on campuses, citywide?
Yeah, I mean, I want to frame this by reading something from the Declaration and Call. This is our toolkit and our guide. This is, there are some important basic truths in it that people actually need to dig into themselves, and has everything to do with what, it's not just some theoretical, like good read or something. It has everything to do with what we're working to transform now, right? And this is what I wanted to read from that. It says, these days, there's a lot of talk about another civil war, especially from fascists in government and the broader society, who think they can just carry out a one-sided slaughter of those they hate, including Black people and other people of color, quote unquote illegal immigrants, quote unquote uppity women, and those who don't conform to traditional sexual and gender relations and norms. The situation needs to be radically changed to where there are masses of people prepared to defeat these fascists and to do so as part of getting rid of this whole system, which has bred these fascists, along with all the other horrors it continually perpetrates. What we need is repolarization for revolution, making real revolution an active and increasingly powerful force of first thousands and then millions of people organized to work for and win more and more people into this revolution, radically changing the terrain in which the revolution will be fought. And I wanted to read that because this is what we're working on, right? Repolarizing this, and how, as I was saying earlier, when you look out into the world, it may seem like, oh man, and a lot of people are suffocated by the lack of hope. They don't see anything, how you can actually wrench something positive out of all of the ugliness that we're seeing, what's happening at the border, what's happening with the destruction of the environment, what's happening around, this Texas abortion ban, right? Like, but this is like, if there is this repolarization that this is talking about, right? Where people are actually, increasingly, working on and themselves becoming part of these thousands and millions, right? And so this is what we're taking to people, this understanding, having them work on this, and again, not just as a theoretical abstract concept, but how we're actually like really going to really transform society. And that means a lot of struggle, a lot of things that we're getting into, where people, put forward a lot of ways how they understand this, or what they think the quote unquote solution is to this, that we really are, doing this in a way where it's not just the ones and twos, but we're really fighting to speak to blocks of people, and having these kinds of discussions, where people are getting into the content of this declaration and are really like, fighting to change society with this.
Well, I think we've met our match. We've raised $7,434. Here, I'm going to show you the sign I just got. 1,000 challenge met. So thank you to everyone who gave. We just got a couple very important moving statements. I'm going to read them in a minute. But so we're at $7,434. That's pretty significant because we're close to half of our goal which is actually the goal for the week. But nobody says we can't raise more than $15,000 between more and October 2nd. So I think this is a very important kickoff. And in this, people should also be, thinking about, well, if I'm going to go raise funds, what's the argument I'm going to make? And people should be, listen to what people are saying on this live stream and think about that. And who can I go talk to about raising funds? And who are the people that are moved by this abortion ban, that are outraged about it, but need to contribute to this, to a force for real revolution toward these contingents, toward the RNL show. Michelle, you said a minute ago that to wage a lot of struggle with people. Maybe you could say more about that. What's the struggle we're waging? How are we seeking to change the thinking of people?
Yeah, one of the things I wanted to draw from this was yesterday we had a mass meeting here in Los Angeles, right? And it was really important, very different, kinds of people came together, and there was some important speaking bitterness to what the situation is, right? And actually some people that were alive at the time and could remember the time before abortion was legal, they spoke about what that meant, right? And their own experiences, right? And it was really cool because you had people of different ages, right? Of different generations, of those, who weren't alive at that time and were really moved by it, right? And, and I just wanted to echo even what you're saying about like, how we're going out and really like, challenging people in this moment. There's a lot, when you put forward this slogan in front of people, you just hear, even today when I was in one of these campuses, somebody just said, well, I had an abortion, and just talking about, and also yesterday in the meeting, people talking about their experience of how much this is like something that is just shamed, you don't talk about it, but in reality, everybody knows somebody who's had an abortion, and these are some of the things that are coming to the surface, right? When we bring this to people and actually talk about what the reality is of what's happening, right? But linking that together to like, what is the moment, and it's not just a situation of a pendulum swing, right? Where now these Republicans are, or they were in power 4 years ago. And so all of these questions of abortion are like, coming up again or something. No, it's a fascist future that these people are fighting for, you know? And the challenge that we're putting to people is what people do now, whether acting or not acting, has a tremendous effect on what this future actually holds. Whether or not women are going to be full treated and viewed as full human beings, or whether they're going to be handmaids. For anybody who's seen the show Handmaid's Tale, know what this is: literally breeders of children, nothing else. And this is the future that they're fighting for, and this is the challenge that we're putting to people right now when they see the Revcoms on their campus, you know, taking these materials and being a part of spreading this, who might be thinking about this, but might be thinking, well, I got to think about my career, or I ain't got time, you know, that we really have to be sharply challenging people. You know, the whether or not we act now has everything to do with what the future holds. And there is a possibility to, you know, not just winning the right, you know, winning that they don't take away the right to abortion, which we should be, but there's a possibility for getting to a whole different society, getting to a whole different world, you know. And this is what Bob Avakian, you know, has actually brought forward in this constitution, is a bare minimum. You know, women would have the right to abortion. Why? In a different society, because we're talking about the liberation of women, the emancipation of all of humanity.
Yeah, and people are seeing on their screens right now footage of the National Revolution Tour on a college campus. And actually, this will be a good link, I think. The last question I wanted to ask you is about you brought in the declaration and call to get organized now for a real revolution. Can you talk more about what is the role of this declaration in all of this, and how we're using it as a tool with students and others throughout the city?
Yeah, well, as I said, the declaration and call to get organized now for a real revolution is our toolkit and our guide, you know, and not just for those of us that are dedicated full time to working to make revolution, but for anybody who would just meet the revolution, you know, who will be attracted to, okay, you're talking about a whole different world, how, you know, to themselves get into this declaration and call and take this to others, you know. And this is part of how we've begun these kinds of discussions, where people who are just finding out about this meet other people who are just finding out about this, and sit around and read from this declaration and talk about, okay, what does this have to do with reality, and what does this have to do with changing all of this now, you know. And one of the things that I've learned, I've been a part of leading some of these discussions on the ground, and something that's really important that we've learned from this is, you know, both how much people like engage actual revolution. And it's very different, because a lot of people throw out the word revolution and can talk about Bernie Sanders and can talk about this and that. But when you get into the content, even just focusing on part one that talks about the system of capitalism that we live under, and puts a very, very matter of fact, this is the source of endless horrors for humanity, you know, and just even reading that people really engage. Okay, you're talking about something else here, you know. But one of the things that has been really important is when we get to the question of leadership in part 3 in this declaration, Bob Avakian, people are kind of like, all kinds of questions come up, right? But they ask, okay, who is this leader, you know? And this opens up like even more deeper discussion on revolution, because BA actually concentrates real revolution. Everything, all of the work that he's actually done has everything to do with not reforms, but actual revolution, overthrowing the system and replacing it. You know, that's what's in the Constitution for the new socialist republic, right? That he's written a lot of work and a lot of, important. Here it is, Constitution for the new socialist republic in North America. You know, a lot of important work and thinking that has gone through, you know, how we would actually reorganize society, you know. And this, you know, this has been like a really important, part of how people are getting organized. And then people sort themselves out, right? Because they really get this point of like, you need leadership. You're talking about a big thing here, you know. It's not just like, whatever, changing things within the system. It's talking about getting to that point, and how right now, again, to go back to what the openings that exist right now, Bob Avakian, right, wrote that piece called "This is a Rare Time When Revolution Becomes Possible." Why that is so, has done important work and going way back to
why that's so, and how to seize on this rare situation.
And how to seize on this rare situation. Exactly. Going way back to really analyzing and looking at reality and how this system gave birth to these fascist movement, and I just wanted to link that to look, this is the only force in society that's actually talking about these questions, and this is why people need to give to the Revcoms. Everything, from going to the question of on abortion to how things are changing every day. We're living in a time when every day you open your computer and you see all these headlines, all these things that are happening, but where do you go to actually understand what you can't see on the surface? You need science, you need leadership. This is what we're bringing to people every day. We're going out to the different campuses, we're struggling with people, we're challenging people, and most importantly, we're putting this in front of people to actually, there's somewhere for people to go and understand, and more than that, to act on this situation. This is why people need to give, so that people like me, people like Annie, can be out on these campuses, and actually bringing forward people to get into this declaration and call.
And I just want to add, when Michelle, you're talking about discussions, we're talking about actually it's kind of an exciting process of really bringing together groups of 3 students, groups of 6 students, groups of 20 students sometimes to stop what they're doing and think seriously about the moment we're in, to break out of, well, me and my life. No, you have 2 choices. You either live with this and condemn future generations to the same or worse, or make revolution. And now is a time when we can get organized for revolution for real. That is not possible without financial support. We have raised $7,934. I want to read one statement that came in from a donor who donated $1,000. And they said, I'm proud to be able to donate funds to all those following that old white guy, Bob Avakian. And that's referencing a point that's made in the declaration call that says, yeah, Bob Avakian's an old white guy, deal with it. Because why? Because he's brought forward an actual strategic approach to making a real revolution, and he's never sold out, and he's never given up. This is literally the most important political thinker and leader in the world. There's never, the declaration also says there's never been a leader like this in this country, and there's no other leader playing the role that Avakian is playing in the world right now. This needs to be known. This needs to be supported, and there needs to be organized forces that are following this leadership. So that's what this statement is referencing. So they said, I'm proud to be able to donate funds to all those following Bob Avakian and participating in the October 2nd contingents to unleash the fury of women as a mighty force for revolution. As BA has been hammering away at for decades, we can't break all the chains but one. I hope BA's latest analysis, identifying this rare moment, reaches thousands more this coming Saturday, building momentum and bringing forward exponential growth in the coming weeks across all genders, in the spirit. So thank you for your generous contribution. Why don't you introduce our next?
Yeah, I wanted to say, this is, people need to know about this leader, and this is what the National Revolution Tour is actually going out into society to really change, to let people know that there is this leader, but more than that, to challenge people to get into the content. People have all kinds of BS ideas about leadership, but people need to actually dig into the content. Yes, some people might disagree, okay, but dig into the content and let's talk about real revolution and the potential to liberate all of humanity. That's what this leader represents, and that's what we're taking to people. And this is, people should think about that as they're watching this next clip that we're gonna watch, and call on other people, to donate to this fundraiser, to tune into this live stream. And so with that, I want to introduce, we're going to watch this clip from Bob Avakian, that is The title is Male Supremacy Stitched Together with Capitalism. And this is from a larger, a longer talk of his, why we need an actual revolution and how we can really make revolution, which is available, on our website. So let's go to that.
The oppression of women and oppressive gender relations. Not only is white supremacy completely interwoven and tightly stitched together with the development of capitalism in this country, but male supremacy is also completely interwoven and tightly stitched together with the whole historical development of the division between exploiters and exploited, oppressors and oppressed throughout the world, including the capitalist imperialist system which is dominant in the world today. Thousands of years ago, with the development of human societies in such a way that means of production, land, domesticated animals, tools, and so on, were no longer the common resource of people, but instead became privately owned. And with the division of labor resulting in women being responsible for child rearing and men dominating ownership of these means of production and wanting to pass this along to their male heirs and not someone else's, this led to the dominance of the patriarchal family, with the man having power over his wife or wives and children, and women in society overall being subordinate to men, with all the brutality and terror, both mental and physical, that has been used to enforce this, and the whole ideology and culture of male supremacy and misogyny regarding women as lesser, despised beings whose essential purpose is to serve men, that has rationalized and reinforced this inequality and oppression. This patriarchal oppression has also been bound up with the suppression and punishment of relations among people, including intimate relations that run counter to and challenge traditional gender relations. It is crucial that there be determined struggle against this terrible oppression in all of its manifestations. But in order to finally abolish and move beyond all this, in society as a whole, and not just in one country, but for all of humanity, it is necessary to abolish the private ownership of the means of production, converting them into the common property of the people as a whole, and to replace the traditional patriarchal family with relations among people, including intimate relations, that are freely entered into and freed from all vestiges of oppression. This, of course, is impossible under capitalism. Only through the revolution to overthrow this system and uproot all relations of exploitation and oppression that are embodied in this system will it be possible to finally end the fundamental division in which half of humanity is subordinated to and dominated by the other half, and all the brutality and agony bound up with that. This is why, in the new socialist society that will be brought into being with the overthrow of capitalism, the goal, as set forth in the Constitution for the new socialist republic in North America, must be to overcome all tradition's chains embodied in traditional gender roles and divisions, and all the oppressive relations bound up with this in every sphere of society, and to enable women, as fully as men, to take part in and contribute to every aspect of the struggle to transform society and the world, in order to uproot and abolish all relations of oppression and exploitation and emancipate humanity as a whole.
So welcome back, everyone. That was Bob Avakian from Why We Need an Actual Revolution and How We Can Really Make Revolution. And now I'm here with Sansara Taylor in your studio.
It's really good to be with you, Annie. And I want to give a special greeting to everybody watching live and everybody who watches later. You can also still donate. And thank you to everybody who's given already.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, Sansara Taylor is a co-host of the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show, a follower and an advocate for the new communism developed by Bob Avakian, but also a longtime fighter in the struggle for women's liberation and for the right to abortion. So Sansara, maybe you can open up, you can respond to the clip we all just heard, but also why should people who are concerned about this question, about this Texas abortion ban, why should they contribute to the RNL, the Revolution Nothing Less show?
Yeah, well, the first thing I want to say is just on the introduction that you gave me, those two things are very linked. Being a follower of Bob Avakian, a fighter for revolution rooted in the new communism, is at the core of why I have been on the forefront and the front lines of the fight for abortion rights for decades now. And I think in what we just heard from BA in the speech, why we need an actual revolution and how we can really make revolution, it's one example of many of really the scientific penetrating understanding that he has and he has brought to many others on the fact that capitalism and patriarchy are woven together. And you can't end one without the other. And it is from this perspective of really looking beneath the surface that BA has been ahead by decades, really way ahead of any other commentator, any other person analyzing the developments in really identifying a rising Christian fascist movement and identifying decades ago the fact that the anti-abortion movement, yes, has never been about babies. It's about controlling women, but it is deadly serious. And it's connected to a whole fascist program, which now we've seen mature with the packing of the Supreme Court, with fascist judges, with the absolute abortion ban in Texas, vigilante bounty hunters in violation of the rule of law, and yet the Supreme Court lets it sit. All of the destruction, the violence embodied in this towards women and the destruction of the rule of law, I have to say BA has been, just really far ahead and very clear on the stakes. And this is what I've learned from over years, and it's fueled the work I've done, traveling the country, organizing people to stand up and defend abortion rights, abortion clinics, and to speak out. And right now, even more urgently, for people to step onto the political stage and not rely, as you've been emphasizing, on the institutions of this system, which favor patriarchy to begin with and have brought to the fore a fascist assault that is now taking away these rights, and the people themselves have to act. And so I just first wanted to start by appreciating what we heard from BA and linking these things, his revolutionary and scientific leadership, and why the Revcoms, as a real hallmark of our movement and our work, take that slogan, break the chains, unleash the fury of women, as a mighty force for revolution, as a strong suit and a touchstone to the revolution we're making and the future we're fighting for.
I think that's come out in the shows you've done, very much on the question of women's liberation, of how integral women's oppression is to the whole system of capitalism, imperialism, of where this assault on abortion is coming from. Like, it's not just to gin up, the fascists, that just they're using this to gin up their base. No, this is something deeper. So can you talk some about, in terms of the show, how... one of the things I was saying to you earlier is that the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show has been sounding the alarm on this particular Texas abortion law way sooner, with the actual clarity of the stakes way sooner than most other platforms, outlets, blah, 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 blah. And part of it has to do with that you're leading a whole national movement for revolution. But can you talk about, in terms of the show, kind of what you've been analyzing and why, and how that's come through in the show, and why people should support that?
It's a great question. I think we did sound the alarm sooner. We have sounded, and we've talked about the stakes more honestly than anybody else out there that I've seen, any other platform, in terms of forcing women to have children against their will is a form of enslavement, and bringing alive what that means in a way that yes is hard to confront. Really, women. We had Tony Redtree on, and she, in captured in the way she put it, something that I think stayed seared in the minds of everybody who heard it. And I got messages from people I know who watched the interview, where she said, "Look, this abortion ban and these Christian fascists are giving more rights to the sperm of a rapist or an uncle or a father than to a woman or an 11-year-old girl who finds herself pregnant and doesn't want to be because of a rape, an incest, or a sexual encounter that maybe was not a horrendous one, but even a beautiful one, but she doesn't want to have a child. And that sperm and what's growing inside of her against her will is being given more rights than her by the state, backed up by vigilante bounty hunters. I think, first of all, we have to confront this in its full ugliness. And I will say, in contrast, and this is something I'm very proud, not in the personal sense, but in the sense of what the truth that we bring, it stands out in contrast to the prettifying that's going on. Today, the Women's March, which it very, very correctly called for protest this Saturday, and we're supporting that and we're joining with that. That's what we're raising money for, the contingents there. But they put out a message and a mandate that you're not to bring coat hangers to their protest this weekend. Because, and I quote, or I paraphrase very closely, they said, "We don't want to accidentally reinforce the right-wing talking points that self-managed abortion, i.e., illegal abortions, are dangerous." Are you kidding me? When women don't have access to safe, legal abortions, of course it's unsafe for the majority of women. Of course women are going to die. They're going to have their lives foreclosed. Prettifying that does nothing but disarm people. That's not a right-wing talking point. That's the cold truth that we have to confront and fight. So we tell the truth about that. There's other things they said. Don't bring handmaids' outfits. I mean, it's absurd. They said that reinforces the idea that assaults on abortions only matter when they affect white women. And it erases, somehow they think Handmaid's Tale erases the violence and the control over the bodies and the reproductive rights of Black women, women of color, immigrants, all of this. It's not true. There is a leap involved towards a theocratic fascism that we tell the truth about on the RNL show that will affect all women. And it needs to be sounded the alarm on, and it is not more of the same. Yes, it's been worse for women of color, for immigrants, for women in detention. Of course it has been, and we should highlight that. And we do. But it is going to affect all women. And it is a leap beyond what anybody right now has any understanding of, and they are prettifying it, and we are not. And one more thing I want to say about what we do on the RNL show, there's a lot I could say, but just on this question, the New York Times came out. You referenced this before, but they said, they acknowledged more of the reality, frankly, than the Women's March is doing right now, and that many others are doing right now. They said the courts are no longer on the side of women. Well, they were never on the side of women, but they are now packed with fascists. And so they correctly said, we can't rely on the courts. We can't just say, as the women's movement has said for decades, Roe v. Wade is legal. Abortion is constitutional. They can't do this. The courts will stop it. No, now the courts are giving it the green light. So the New York Times said we can't rely on the courts. Instead, we have to take up the long, patient process of winning elections. And maybe over a few decades, 40 years, we'll win these rights back. And we bring alive the unconscionableness of that, how many women's lives are sacrificed, but also the reality that that's not how any rights were won in the first place, through the long, patient process of elections. It was won through people stepping outside the institutions of this system, waging struggle, sit-ins, burning around any question against the Vietnam War, burning draft cards for civil rights, sitting in at lunch counters for abortion rights, speaking out when it was illegal, and telling the truth about abortions women got when it was criminalized. Women did this. It was courageous. And this is what won these rights. This is what's needed now. And with the RNL show, with the Revolution Nothing Less show, we not only tell the truth about how dangerous the future that is unfolding right now if we don't divert it through struggle, we not only tell the truth about that, we tell the truth about what could be wrenched through people lifting their sights and getting in the streets and getting serious and waging a fight that women are full human beings, not incubators, and linking this increasingly to the scientific understanding of the need for an actual revolution and the rare time we are in And the rare leadership we have that can navigate this revolution, that has a vision for a new society, we are bringing hope on a scientific foundation. And we are fighting tenaciously in the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show, in the work of the Revolution Tour, and increasingly in the community of viewers that we stitch together. People who are checking this revolution out, people who are taking serious guidance from it, and the conversations that we need to spread on that basis and impact society with. And this is why the RNL show needs support financially to keep this studio operating. We pay rent every month. Just got a new microphone. We had 2. Used to have just one that was this nice. Now we have 2. Our sound levels are in sync. It's beautiful. Costs money. We have a new computer we just got because the illustrations, the beautiful effects, the imagery that we bring, all of this takes, I'm learning more and more about this myself. It takes extraordinary amount of memory, power of a computer. We've got a new computer. We just got that, cost funds. And we have a full-time team working on this. We're a professional production team working on this more than full-time. That team, I'm part of it. We need to be supported. This is a full-time endeavor, and we don't get paid for it, but your support enables us to do this. And so all of this we bring, and it is connected to really, in this very dangerous time, wrenching something beautiful out of what really is shaping up to be a nightmare, if not for what we're doing.
I want to just announce we've reached $8,564. So I want to thank all the people who are donating. We've got probably just another 10 or 15 minutes of this program. So stay tuned in, keep giving. I want to read a statement. This actually speaks to what you were talking about earlier, not prettifying what this ban is going to mean. Somebody who donated $500, and they said, "I'm a retired RN. I'm a retired nurse. Abortion was already legal when I came of age, but I've heard stories about an entire sepsis ward in hospitals dedicated to caring for women infected from botched abortions. We can't go back. We won't go back. No surrender." So I just wanted to say that. And I wanted to thank the person who gave and made this powerful statement. This is something people need to do. They need to tell the stories about what it was like before abortion was legal. This is not something people understand who didn't live through it, and that has to change. And the other thing that has to change, and Michelle talked about this earlier and came through in one of the recent episodes of the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show, when Michelle talked about her own experience and lack of understanding how she'd been brainwashed through the Catholic Church, through the lies about, oh, you have an abortion, that's like killing a baby. This kind of defensiveness and lack of understanding. The RNL show brings the truth on this question, but also more fundamentally, what's actually possible with a whole different world. So I just wanted to bring that in to thank the donor. I want to ask another question about funds and the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show. One of the things that I have been thinking about and want to call on everyone to be part of is we cannot underestimate the impact and the importance that clarity, truth, and a call to action and a call to revolution can have in this moment, in this situation. When actually, because things are so sharp and so polarized, you have more of a chance to break the hold of this system, that break the hold that the system has on people. But we are still fighting the algorithm. Mm-hmm. We are still fighting the ways in which the actual institutions, including YouTube.com, work to reinforce the modes of thinking in line with the system. So what's actually required in terms of finances, but also in terms of a mass movement to break through that, to spread the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show in this moment? And what difference do you think that can make?
Well, I do want to say straight up that if you want to change how people are acting, if you want to change the widespread acquiescence that is going on, you have to change how people are thinking. People act on the basis of what they understand. And it's very, very, we're in a culture right now where it's completely inverted. Fascist lunatics who know nothing, but are fueled by bigotry and conspiracy theory and hate, vicious outlooks, have all the certitude in the world. They're out there yelling at people. And I know the Revolution Club has encountered this out on the campuses and elsewhere. The people who hate women's reproductive freedom, the people who hate masks, they're much more aggressive than the people who have some sanity and some concern for humanity. And we have to reverse that. And one of the things among people who do care, there's a fear of ruffling feathers and challenging each other and struggling over things. And there's a timidity about that. And one thing, when you're telling this story, and Michelle spoke before about it, about how she changed her views on abortion, it called to mind as you were recounting that, something that I have learned very deeply from Bob Avakian. It is a hallmark of his, and it's something that we really seek to measure up to every week in the Revolution Nothing Less show, which is that it is a form of contempt for the masses of people to think they're too stupid to understand what's actually true in a scientific way, and to refuse to struggle with them and challenge them when they're wrong. And so we do tell the truth unadulterated. It's also in the Declaration call to get organized. We are not here to tell you things and repeat things just because they're popular. We're here to tell you the truth. And that is a fight. It's a fight we wage, and it's a fight we call on our viewers to wage with us, to spread this show, to subscribe to the show, to comment beneath it, and let us know what you think of it. When it rubs your feathers and you have a question about it or a difference, we want to know. If you think things were especially powerful, we want to know. If you have further questions, we want that engagement on our YouTube channel, and we want it spreading throughout society. To subscribe and fight for this show, and that is funding it so we can put it out. We want to do more to promote the show: palm cards, posters, ways that it gets spread. Probably this week we'll show a picture. It really moved me, a man who is part of the movement for revolution here. He comes to things at times and he is unhoused, but he carries his belongings in a cart. And he printed this beautiful, beautiful printout of the last episode of the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show. And he fastened it on the front of his cart. So everywhere he goes, people are seeing. And it's got the picture, the thumbnail from episode 71. He's spreading it among his community. He's spreading it every day. People, in many different ways, we have to get this show visible. We have to talk with people about it. We have to watch it together with others. And we have to fund it. So I think, there's a fight. I guess I would put it this way. The fight to yourself engage deeply with the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show and to spread it and to fund it is actually it's one of the most decisive dimensions of fighting to spread this revolution and to change how people are thinking and acting and get an accelerant going, precisely in this time, as you've been emphasizing, when people's assumptions, their explanations for how they think the world is and what makes sense to them, that have held for many of them for decades, and they've never questioned them, they're being forced to question as the expectations they've had are being shattered. A lot of people were shocked by this abortion ban in Texas. A lot of people are shocked by the images at the border of a man on a horse with whips against Haitian refugees and migrants. Things are happening that are shocking. And there's a very negative side of that. But there's also, like you said, and like the Declaration says, this is a time when if we're fighting, if we're spreading this message, if we're giving people a scientific understanding that actually there is a way to understand this, not the way you have understood it, but in a way that sees the system as the source of these problems and the revolutionary solution, we can break the hold of huge sections of people leap by leap. But fighting for this show, break the hold of this system over people's thinking and bring them to revolution. And this show and this tour and funding it makes a huge difference. So I know I probably got to wrap up, but I want to just say very directly to everybody watching, if you haven't given yet during this webinar live stream fundraiser, I want to ask you right now to go to Venmo, to go to PayPal, to go to CashApp, and make a serious donation. Make a donation that measures up to the difference that we need to be making right now. The t-shirts, the materials, the show itself. If you can give $100, give $100. If you can give $1,000, give $1,000 and send us a message why you're giving. If you can give $10,000 or pledge it over the next several months, let us know and we'll make it a matching fund drive with others. And if what you can do is give $5 and go to 20 friends or 3 friends and ask them for the same, do that, because you're part of fueling this and being part of a community that's doing it together and spreading it. Every time you ask for somebody to give money to the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show or to the Revolution Tour, you are opening a conversation with them and spreading this revolution. And so it's a double win. So I just really want to ask you to make that donation now. Looks like our number went up.
So we're at $9,164. Thank you for those who are giving. We are going to move to closing us out. Thank you, Sansara, for making the time to
I'm very happy
be
to be
part
here.
of raising these funds. And I think you brought a lot of important understanding to this. I wanted to read two donations that came in. Okay, so one was $200 from a friend moved by your beautiful determination to break all the chains. So thank you for that donation and thank you for that statement. I wanted to read another statement that came in from somebody who gave a $100 donation, and they sent a substantive statement. I'm just going to read a part of it. They said, "I'm donating to the Break All the Chains contingent, Unleash the Fury of Women as a Mighty Force for Revolution at the October 2nd Women's March." And they told this story. They said, "I was raped and got pregnant when I was a 19-year-old nursing student. Abortion was illegal back in 1965, and thousands of women died at the hands of back alley abortion butchers. I was fortunate to find a sympathetic doctor who was willing to put his license on the line to save me from a life of forced motherhood. Now the abortion doctors are facing death threats and murder at the hands of these Christian fascists and vigilantes that have been unleashed against anyone who helps a woman get an abortion. And these restrictive laws, like the one in Texas, are growing across the country. We cannot go back to before Roe versus Wade, but with the Supreme Court packed with fascists, it seems we may if we don't fight back with millions in the streets. It is possible to change this." And then they go on and they talk about examples of people rising up. And they said that as Bob Avakian, the world's most important revolutionary leader and architect of the new communism, has stressed, patriarchy and capitalism are bound together, and we can't eliminate one without eliminating the other. We need to mobilize all those who are outraged by these growing fascist programs as a mighty force for an actual revolution to break all traditions. To break all traditions' chains, break the silence and the hopelessness. So thank you for that donation and that important statement. Again, I think this is a time when people have to be telling these stories. People need to hear them. They need to hear what it actually means when we say forced motherhood is female enslavement. People need to understand the actual reality of this, that if women are reduced to being breeders and incubators, you are no more than a slave. This is intolerable. We cannot allow this, but we have to get organized to take it on. And these contingents this coming Saturday can raise people's sights to the need and the basis for determined, uncompromising, no going back resistance, and to take that resistance and have it fuel a force for revolution for real, to overthrow this whole system that's given rise to these fascists. So we have Michelle Chai back with us to help us close out this emergency live stream. We've raised $9,564. We're just going to be with each other for a few more minutes. So I would, I think it would be very meaningful if we were able to meet a $10,000 donations while we're sitting here together, while you're tuned in from across the country, the community of people giving. So welcome back, Michelle.
I just wanted to say real quick, just hearing all the different statements that have been sent, today through the course of this live stream, getting to share with, people watching, some of the experiences, going out into the campuses and leading the mass meeting, yesterday, and, and just, you just hear what you just read, right? And people being inspired around, people actually not just doing something about this, but fighting for a whole different future, and I just think what's more important that people can give their money to, and to thinking about the potential that exists right now, the fact that this is a very serious situation. And as we're hearing people sharing their stories and how this has like affected them, and multiply that by millions, that are feeling this outrage, that are agonizing over where this is going to go, that are thinking about, our sisters in Texas, and that are being led to just give money for them to travel to another state and to just accept that we've lost the right to abortion, rather than like lifting people's sights to both, no, we don't actually have to accept this. That's the point of one of our slogans for this Saturday is no going back, no surrender. But then two, that something really positive can be wrenched out of this situation. A future where women, and men and differently gendered people are going to be, equals and comrades. A different society and a whole different world where people, where those stories that were told today, that have been told through the course of us doing this work and being out everywhere, where this doesn't get repeated ever again. Where women don't, these kinds of stories are learned about in the history books of the kinds of the things that women had to endure, had to like go through because of what? Because of a system of capitalism, imperialism. Bob Avakian has said there's no good reason why people should have to go through any of this other than a system of capitalism, imperialism. There's no reason why we should be accepting any of this. There's the National Revolution Tour. There's the leadership of Bob Avakian. We have all of that, that can actually be, this is the biggest resource for humanity. There's nothing more important that people can give their money to. And right now, in this moment, this National Revolution Tour, being out in society and changing all of this, in a very short period of time, that's what your money's going to. That's what you're actually funding. And people should think about that, and people should, you're a part of that. You who's, watching this live stream, who's contributing money, who, are becoming sustainers, who are watching the Revolution Nothing Less show and spreading it. You are a part of that, of changing all of this right now, digging into the leadership of Bob Avakian, and spreading this with other people. You're a part of that, and we need millions more right now.
And they can be reached if we actually have the funding to do it.
Yeah.
I want to just say a couple more things. On this National Revolution Tour, we're on a mission. We are going full time. We're working, workshopping our agitation. How do we reach people? How do we reach inside people? How do we organize people? How do we learn from this declaration and call to get organized now for a real revolution? How do we apply it to the situation we're in? How are other people taking this up? And we're working and we're building to be able to lead a national movement for revolution for real. If you go to revcom.us, you can read our reports, our reflections, our wranglings, and what we're doing here needs to grow. It needs to reach a ton more people. It needs to grow. We're at $9,564. I wanted to, so keep giving. We're going to close this out in just a minute. I wanted to make a point just off of what you just said, Michelle, where you were talking about what's happening right now to our sisters in Texas. And, you have women traveling to Oklahoma, you have women traveling to Louisiana. And some of what we've heard from, a sliver of people was, oh, that's really terrible what's happening there. But at least we're okay in California. Well, first of all, that's profoundly immoral. Like, consign these women to have their futures and their dreams foreclosed. No, this is unacceptable. But also, you got to understand, this is coming across the country. This is like a fascist steamroller, and they're not stopping in Texas. They are going for an open white supremacist, male supremacist theocracy. They are going back for a worse than pre-Roe v. Wade future. Right? That is not, our call for the contingents for this coming Saturday says this Handmaid's Tale future is not science fiction. This is upon us. But, and two things about that. These contingents this Saturday are going to raise the banner. Christian fascist theocrats, get your laws and vigilantes off our body. No going back, no surrender, abortion on demand without apology, and are going to model the kind of uncompromising, defiant resistance that's needed for people to take up all across the country and break like a dam The outrage and the anger and the agonizing of the women that we encounter, the men and the women that we see and we encounter every day when we're out organizing for this. And we're going to link that to the fact that patriarchy and capitalism can't be ended one without the other. Revolution, nothing less. Break all the chains. Unleash the fury of women as a mighty force for revolution, for real. The person you led the meeting with yesterday at the monthly Revolution Club mass meeting, they made the point that we've been standing on this campus, kind of a high-level university, and watching the floods of women go by them, and thinking about the fact that these fascists hate the fact that there's all these young women with their dreams ahead of them, to actually be integral in society and not forced to be breeders and slaves to men. They hate that. And they're seeking to tear up that and foreclose that future. But there you also see the potential for an actual revolution and to bring into being a whole different way to organize society. And the other point you were making in this meeting yesterday is in this Constitution that's been authored by Bob Avakian, lays out the bare minimum you can have a society where the basic right to abortion is enshrined into law. And the role and the fury of women can actually be unleashed and given backing by state and society. So I wanted to add that to like what we've been encountering, what we've been arguing for, what we've been organizing around, and what we've been spreading. We're at $9,914. Thank you to the people who are giving. I think we're going to close out with just a couple things to take us off as homework for our viewers, as homework for the people supporting this National Revolution Tour, the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show. Look, Sansara said it well. When you go out and you raise funds for this revolution, you are spreading this revolution. The declaration and the call makes the point that far too few people know about this revolution and are with it. Raising funds is the way that can change, both through the funds that are actually raised so that we can spread the materials, so that we can come up with creative ideas for how to reach, and yes, go up against the algorithm so we can reach the thousands and the millions that need to be reached right now, but also through the very ask of for funds. You are spreading this revolution and you are opening up a discussion and yes, a struggle about why people should sacrifice to this more than ever. And Michelle made that point very well earlier. There is nothing more important that you could give your funds to than the hope for a whole different world for humanity, where we could actually put ourselves to dealing with the environmental destruction that this system of capitalism, imperialism has caused and can never deal with, can never put a stop to. The force for an actual revolution. This is the most important thing you can give to, and it's needed now more than ever because it's a rare time when revolution could be possible. Your funds can have a disproportionate impact. So people, we are going to be back soon. Later in October, stay tuned to revcom.us for fundraising plans on a major level. We need your ideas. Please write to us at getorganizedforrevolutiontour@gmail.com. We want your ideas, your creative insight for how we can build a national movement for revolution and fundraise for that national movement. DM us at the Revcoms with your ideas. If you want to become a sustainer, that's a big need, so that we can have a regular amount to rely on every month. You can go to patreon.com/therevcoms or become a sustainer via Venmo, CashApp, PayPal. You can mail us a check, old school style, and go to revcom.us and find out how. But you are going to be hearing from us soon, and we need to hear from you. How are we going to raise the necessary funds for this movement for revolution to scale up to an exponential degree? That's what's needed. That's what's possible, especially right now. And then we're going to tell us about these.
Yeah. So these are our revolutionary change jars, which is something that, we've been getting out to working together with people who don't have the kind of means to give in the hundreds, who have full-time jobs and can't really, be out with the Revcoms all the time, but want to contribute, right? And the idea for these revolutionary change jars is people take them with them wherever they go, whether it's in their homes, putting them in the front door with declarations next to it. So whenever people come over, they say, hey, drop your change, whatever change you got in your pockets, throw it in this jar, take a declaration and call. And people, people have filled them up, and it's a beginning thing that people are taking up, but it's a very significant way that, as Sarah and you were talking earlier, is a very significant way in which you are spreading this revolution, and you're putting this need before people, because people need to know that there is a force out there that is organizing for revolution, and that they need serious funds, and that they can actually contribute to this by learning more about this, and at the same time making a financial donation to this revolution. And it's a very simple and yet very significant way that, when you think about the numbers of people that if all they do is just fill up these change jars every week or every month, and they bring it to the Revcoms, and they say this was like from however many people, and I got out 100 declarations or 50 declarations, that's so important. And that needs to be more of what the kind of movement that we're building right now, where there's all kinds of people being brought together, both those that can give, big funds, and those that can give $5 or can take the change jars and fill them up. All of these things, all of these kinds of people being brought together is the beauty of this revolution that, is something that had a big impact on me when I first started coming around, and is something that inspires and has a big impact on all kinds of people. And I just wanted to echo your call for sustainers, because, people shouldn't, for all of our regular watchers, that know some of us, people shouldn't just wait until the next live stream to raise funds. It should be something that we're doing all the time. Everybody that we're sending a message to, everybody that we're, that we're getting into the Revolution Nothing Less show with, this is another important thing on the importance and the kind of impact that this show is having, is somebody on this campus, who was one of the campuses that we've been going, watched the Revolution Nothing Less show and had a big impact on her. And then she went back to the whole channel and just scrolled through and started watching videos. And then she went and watched it with her mom. And then she had a whole struggle with her mom about abortion and the need to act now, and she made this important point. And she said, look, if people are not thinking about these things, but if this show was put in front of them and they were watching this, it would make them think about these things. And more than that, it leads them to actually understand where this is coming from and what to do about it now. This is the kind of impact that this show is having on people right now. And it has so much potential. And that's where all of you come in. That's where, your funds and what it's going to, if we had the kind of, promotion, the kind, if there was this RNL show logo with the time and the link to, to the show on buses or on billboards or this kind of thing, where people are seeing it and they're thinking, okay, what is this? Let me go check it out. Like, what kind of impact would this have? To this young woman's point, people need to be thinking about this, and the Revolution Nothing Less show and the role that this is playing nationally, the potential that it has can be so much greater than what it's having right now, and this is why people should, become sustainers. People should be going out to everybody. Even if you replay this live stream to people, if you feel like you can't make the case yet, bring them, put this on your TV and, make some pie or something and host people to watch this together and pass the hat. These are very simple but very significant ways that you can contribute and actually be a part of a larger community of this movement for revolution.
So we want to thank everyone for tuning in today. Okay, we're at $10,014. A pretty significant beginning. We are aiming to raise $15,000 and more by the end of this week. Even more than that on October 2nd through the presence of these contingents. Let's go change the world, people. Thank everyone who tuned in, who gave. I want to end with one last statement from an international supporter of the revolution who gave $50. $50 for the work of the Revolution Club, for the work of the National Revolution Tour and the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show in breaking the chains that hold women and all of humanity. That's what we need to do. That's our charge. Nothing less than that. Thank you. And we will see you all in the streets this coming Saturday. Go to revcom.us to sign up for these contingents. Let's go change the world and seize the future from these fascists, the nightmare of this system, for a whole better world and all of humanity. Thank you.